Oh, I'll do a card. Well, what time? Okay, let me, Jen is gonna be on this meeting. I'll ask her right now.
Morning.
Morning.
I have it right here. I haven't read it yet.
Okay, well, you'll,
Oh, a client called me last night while I was watching your meeting, and I caught maybe the last half of your deliberation or maybe last third of it, but I got the gist of it.
yeah. I mean, it was a kind of a trip down a selective a selective dip into various zoning
Yeah.
issues, and then it was sort of like a stew. You mixed and matched.
Yeah. He sent out a long thing on the 30th that we all got
Yeah.
yesterday. That, he's playing lawyer, but whatever. We'll deal with it.
Well, that's right. He's sort of,
And I wasn't online, I was going to put in a chat, but I wanted to echo everything everybody said about Jen last night. It will be sorely missed, Jennifer Orr.
where the hell is she?
I see she might be here, but
She looks like she's Peter, hello.
but really, to go to Hingham over us, really?
I meant to ask, is Carolyn Murray by any chance a town council in Hingham, or because she lives there, is that?
No, who is Hingham's town council? It used to be a long time ago, Jim Murphy from Murphy Hesse, Karis North's firm. I don't know if they might still have it. I'm not sure. But for years, he was Hingham's town council. He was also over here in Hanover. So you had Hingham and Hanover.
Yeah, I guess when I think about it, our town council was Richard Henderson for a while. Well, he's moderator. Yeah, he was town council, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was his, wasn't it his, well, no, he was, but Beckwith wasn't he moderator a long time ago?
Maybe. And I don't know about Thaxter, Blake Thaxter.
Blake Thaxter, yeah.
So
Hello,
Jen,
Peter.
hi, everybody. Jen is leaving?
She's going to Hingham.
This is her very last day.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
That's too bad. That's our loss.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it really is unfortunate because she's got so much.
So much institutional knowledge.
No, I was just going to say that.
What kind of position is she going to?
Tom, do you remember? It's like assistant town.
Oh, I thought she was, yeah, it's another position in the planning department there.
It's a step up from where she is here.
Yeah.
But it's a bigger department.
Yeah, they're a much bigger department, right? Well, good luck to her. Well, we wish her well.
Yeah, I'm sorry to see her go.
Great resource. Too bad. And she was well paid here, frankly. Or at least she used to be. I don't know.
I think, yeah.
Oh, I just hope it isn't because of all the drama on the planning board.
Who knows?
I don't know about that. I don't know.
There certainly is a lot of drama on the planning board, so that's undeniable.
You guys had nothing on the select board last night.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So
what was on their agenda?
the fire chief replacement, the regional sewer, Elm Street got a drubbing by Ralph Dormitzer. So it was a real hard night for anybody that's been working on some of these town committees. So.
There've been a lot of those lately.
Yeah.
You think it reflects the general malaise in the country, or is it Cohasset specific?
I don't know.
No.
I think it's a
I
combination.
think you're right, Peter. You can see it in the legal community and the cases and the positions and the people are taking, and there's something else going on.
Yeah, there definitely is an undercurrent that's poisoning everything.
Yeah, it's funny. It's the best way I can describe it is it's kind of a pervasive attitude of my way or the highway, and there's no sense of community. Or it's really hard to put your finger on like what would bring the community together. So it's that I'm really struggling with, honestly. So.
Well, yeah, you could add to that. It's related. I think there's a lessening of respect for various town boards, on a microcosm, or boards and agencies in general in the country. It's a suspicion that people are either incompetent or don't have the best interests of the broader public at heart or something. And it doesn't encourage newbies to join boards when they're going to be treated with some disdain.
That's right. That's why the epidemic of people resigning.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to deal with the public anymore. The public has become caustic.
Not us though. We're nice to each other.
No, we're kind.
So can I ask, did they have a big stink about the fire chief's, the description of his job description for the new chief?
So I wasn't on for that part of the discussion. I was actually watching the ZBA.
There is an issue. There is an issue there.
My understanding was that the concern was around the emergency management.
Yeah.
So whether that should be included in the fire chief role or whether that should still be a separate role. I think that Jack had expressed some concerns about that.
Can't speak long, but
So who are we expecting? I see that Jen is sort of on, but not.
Yeah,
Cassie's there.
Jen texted me and she just gave me that she was headed into the office, but was at a doctor's appointment. So I think, and I also got an email just a couple of minutes ago from Paul Cleary saying that he and his family all have COVID and they're up in Vermont. So he is not going to be able to attend. I have not heard from Jack. And what else are we missing? I think that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think we with
sorry about that.
Cassie joining us, I think we have a quorum. So I'm going to call us to order at 10:36 for the zoning bylaw working group meeting of January 5th, 2021. Roll call. Present Katie Dugan.
Chidick, present.
Peter Pescadore, present.
I'm Callahan, present.
Cassie, you're present. I heard you. Okay. So first order of business is approval of minutes from December 9th, 2021. It was a easy set of minutes to write because we just discussed the comprehensive zoning redraft RFQ last time. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from December 9th, 2021. Can I get a second? Thank you. All in favor, aye. Katie Dugan.
Aye.
Woody Chidick, aye.
I'm
Peter
Callahan.
Pescadore,
aye.
aye. There we go. We
All
stepped,
right, thanks,
stepped on
guys.
each other, even though we try to avoid it.
It is an impossible task.
Yeah. But we ought to do it in alphabetical order or something.
I know. All right, I'll try and get us better. So
Avoid tripping over ourselves.
Exactly.
All right, well, we'll try and up our Zoom sophistication as we go forward through the year. So thank you for that. I will get those off to the town clerk. There were really two orders of business. One was just kind of buttoning up a couple bits about the RFQ process before that goes live next week, and then really having a group discussion around next steps in terms of what we want to do between now and the consulting coming on board mid-February. And I had thrown out a couple ideas in the agenda, but just to button up the RFQ process, I circulated to the group this morning a final draft. I went through it and reflected really the only substantive comment that we got from the meetings with the planning board and select board, which was adding to the scope of services some additional language about outbound communication services to make sure that we are capable and have the resources in order to be able to do outbound communications, in particular to the community relative to the comprehensive zoning redraft. So that was kind of the one substantive add. Cassie then went through and did a hard proof for me from kind of soup to nuts. And the only other comment that I got was from Lauren Lynn, just asking to move the interview date from the finalists from March 1st to Monday, February 28th, which is a movement of one day. It just worked better with her and Michelle's schedule. So I did that. So if anybody has any comments on that final RFQ draft that I sent out between now and Friday, I mean, certainly raise your hand if there's a typo or anything else, because we have time to correct it. But I'm feeling really good about the draft. I did last time, and now we've just kind of cleaned it up that little bit more. So that's where we are in terms of the RFQ itself.
Katie, you may want to also post the members who didn't listen in or weren't present. Cassie was present at the select board's meeting where we reviewed the tatters of our town meeting presentation and your take, at least. I mean, I don't know, Tom, Peter, you might have been listening in on a
No, I wasn't.
on a Zoom. Well, I think it'll be useful, Katie, for you to, if you don't mind being put in the spot, but just
yeah, I'm happy to. Just make us grab what I said.
gosh, I didn't mean to make her get up and leave.
All right. Yeah, so I'm happy to.
Yeah,
so,
you don't have to go through all chapter and verse, but I think it's
No.
more of an attitudinal, your take on the way they responded. We were not happy with the lack of support, visible support at town meeting from the select board, and let that be known.
Yeah, so I guess the opportunity presented itself because we already had, we're already on the schedule to meet with the select board on December 14th, the day after special town meeting. So Cassie, Woody, and I were there to kind of collect comments. I chose to speak from my heart, but hopefully it reflected kind of some of the others on the working group's perspectives. And what I shared with the select board was that I thought there were really three factors that were very disappointing about the discussions on Article 6 and Article 7. And the first and probably the most direct one was to the select board itself, that they did not step up to the microphone to lend any political support to the articles. And, you know, given that there were a number of new voters at the meeting because of the baseball lights issue, the lack of participation by elected boards in the dialogue was notable. And it really didn't help that there was no attempt to moderate the freight train of opposition. So that was point number one. Point number two was, again, this whole concept of like developer interest speaking without proper disclosure of exactly what their individual conflicts of interest were relative to the dialogue. And so it made it very difficult for an average community member who wasn't aware of the inside baseball, you know, to know that that was a developer's wife that stood up at the microphone and spoke so articulately about the article and why it should be opposed. And so my point is that the lack of transparency around what people's individual financial interests were in the discussion didn't allow the voters to really evaluate the merits of the speaker's statements. And the fact that two planning boards members, effectively one did change their vote, but it wasn't obviously brought forward at town meeting, was just done via email. And the second one was the rescission effectively in the court of public opinion for support for Article 7 really damaged the discussion. And then last but not least was really, let's have an honest conversation about communication going forward. And there were a lot of excuses given at special town meeting that Zoom was a barrier, although we managed to do 6 hours of public hearings, in October related to these articles. So there wasn't much of a barrier then. And the fact that people seem to think that with additional time that they would be delving into the details on what is a dense and difficult topic is something that I think we all just need to be cognizant of as to the realities of how involved the community is going to get. I think we can do better for sure in terms of communications, but I think Rob Jeffers kind of honestly poked some good fun at the community around, are you really gonna get involved next time or not? And I think we just need to have this new framework of communication, which is part of what we're going to discuss later in the agenda. So that was what I said to the select board. And that was really just a backdrop to like, listen, if we're going to do this RFQ, you as a select board need to do better at supporting the working group and frankly, even your own objectives, because this is one of their goals is zoning reform. So listen, we got a lot of nice words back in response to that statement.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Katie, it sounded like your message was well received. There wasn't any defense, or I feel like collectively they felt like they agreed with all of your points in your message.
Yeah, Cassie, if I could push back a little, though I've felt and seen and heard this sort of mea culpa approach before from the select board, some current, some past members.
Yeah,
and I don't believe them entirely,
Okay.
frankly.
Yeah, I was going to say I personally was on the receiving end of that in 2017, promoting the citizens petition, with so many promises of people who were going to get up to speak and support, who sat on their hands, except for an unexpected member of the advisory committee who almost got us over the top. But, from what I'm now understanding what happened last night about Elm Street at the selectmen's meeting, I don't think they're changing their tune, because apparently they're letting a minority opinion carry the day. Somebody needs to get the intestinal fortitude to stand up for the projects and programs we're trying to promote in this town. And if they say they support them, they need to get up and do more. And they have to put,
Alternatively,
you can respect a minority opinion, but at some point you need to put it in its place.
Alternatively, I think that perhaps we can't hope for a change in attitude on the select board's part, and we're going to have to build that into our communication and other strategizing, and not assume that they will stand up and be counted as a group in the way that we might like. And it just says we'll have to be more assertive about communication. But we shouldn't also ignore the fact that of the two bylaw proposals, one obviously went down, the other one barely made it by only 3 or 4 votes. I mean, it was not a slam dunk. It was terribly uncomfortably close.
And it was a pretty non-controversial item.
Yeah, so the attitude, at least among that group, was don't support the zoning bylaw working group, basically.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I guess, this is where I'm at personally. I really enjoy working with this group. I think that there is a mandate out there to make zoning changes. I am just very skeptical, like Woody is and Tom is, that we're going to be able to rely on some partner committees to do our work right now. And the best way I can describe it is this, which I'm willing to give it a college try again. I really am. But I'm also very cognizant that every member on this committee should know what their pain threshold is, and I'm not going to hold it against anyone, including myself, if people decide to tap out at some point because there's a lack of support or you're just not not ready to go through this ringer again. I think there is a potential for seed change in terms of our ability to do outbound communications and a whole bunch of other public engagement work with a consultant. So I am hopeful that that's going to change some of the dynamics. I just, the lack of board support, both at planning board and at select board, and this minority opinion dynamic are going to make our work difficult. And I'm eyes wide open about that. So I do want to say that I want to continue the work with this group, but I am also eyes wide open that at some point, either myself or others are going to say this is for the birds, and that's okay. I'm okay with that.
I
Just
mean,
not quite ready to throw in the towel yet.
Yeah, we should understand that everybody, like we've seen at these meetings, it's always going to be the minority and the naysayers who come out. And that's at every level of politics that goes on. And I think with proper education of the community who does not generally pay attention to all this stuff, we can prevail. But, and I don't want us, the planning board right now is still a minority of people who are shooting this down. I don't want to I don't want to let them win, basically. But we have to be aware of the fact that all we're going to be dealing with in these hearings and all the people we have to convince is that stupid minority. And I shouldn't say stupid minority, that minority.
Well, it's a self.
We're never going to hear from the supporters in a constructive way unless, some people decide to jump in on meetings like this. So.
Yeah, well, maybe in that regard, Katie, I know it's not formally part of the agenda, but there is this item of communication via the anchor, which is a new rag starting up. And I don't know where you've got it. I don't have an agenda in front of me, so I don't know where you've got it slotted.
So I've got it slotted under next steps working group. So I did want to close out the RFQ just quickly.
Okay, sorry, I hijacked that a little bit.
No, it's okay. Listen, I think it's all good dialogue. But I do want to have that conversation about, because I do think there's some things that we can do proactively in the next month or two that are going to help us going forward. But just to close out the RFQ process, so any final comments between now and Friday, let me know. Otherwise, silence is also acceptable answer because I think it's in good shape. We do need to appoint 2 people to the interview committee. And so I just wanted to bring up the dates again for this. And the select board forgot to put on their agenda last night the fact that they need to appoint members to the interview committee. So they're going to revisit that at their meeting next week. The planning board is going to appoint their 2 members tonight at their meeting. So the way the interview committee was lined up, it was 2 from zoning, 2 from planning board, 1 from the select board, and then 3 town members. But I think we're down to John and Lauren right now, since Jen is leaving us. So we'll have 2 town members. So we'll have 7 on this interview committee. So this was the schedule. The bids are scheduled to be opened on February 10th. Anybody on the interview committee would need to do the review of the proposal and ranking of the proposals, which is work you can do on your own the week of the 14th to the 18th. The interview committee will meet via Zoom the week of the 21st to review their individual rankings and select the finalists. And then there'll be the interviews of the actual finalists, presuming that we get 3 qualified bidders on Monday, February 28th. So with that, are there volunteers to be on the interview committee that are available at that time range in February? Tom, I know I know you put your hand forward.
Well, I want to say this to the group that I am going to put in for the planning board one tonight. If I was nominated here, I'd stick, and also nominated by the planning board, I'd stick with the planning board appointment. Just because, I mean, part of it, to be very honest, is that I don't think people who are not engaged and involved and committed to this process should be on even this somewhat innocuous committee just to pick a consultant. If you're not believing in the process, you shouldn't be there. So,
Well, Tom, I think if I recall correctly, I thought the planning board had a lot of interest of members who wanted to be a part of the interview.
yeah, but we have two of them who I personally believe aren't engaged in this process and who are otherwise taking steps against what this group is doing. So I'm not interested in seeing them become members, and I'm going to say that tonight. So Amy has asked for us who are interested to put together a written statement, and my statement
Yeah.
says that. So I'm not going to shy away from that. Do I need to have more time of my workday taken out? No, I don't. But I'm involved in this, and I want to be on this committee just to, but I'd rather see it coming from the planning board. So
No, I understand that.
I
I just
checked
thought
in-
strategically it'd be helpful to have, I mean, I would hope that no one from planning board would be on the committee to sabotage the process, but I thought strategically it might be helpful to have two planning board members other than you, but.
You know what, it would, but that doesn't appear to be going to
Reality.
happen. There's going to be probably three of us tonight applying, but we'll see.
Okay. And listen, to be honest, I don't want to, we can certainly modify the interview committee as needed, but we sort of set this up and marketed it as 5. So let me just go around the horn. Cassie, do you want to be on the interview committee?
Sure. Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. I just didn't want to take the place if everyone was chopping at the bit.
Woody, again, feel free.
Yeah, in a pinch, but I think Cassie and you would be, expected to be great candidates from this working group, personally.
Okay. Peter, do you want to arm wrestle?
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
I mean, I'll
Paper.
I'll step in, I'll take it if, there's nobody else wants it, but
I'm happy to serve. Like I
I agree with Woody. I think you two have done most of the detail work, and you would be best served to be on the committee.
Sounds to me like it's unanimous,
Yeah.
right, Peter?
Yeah, I think it's an acclaim.
I'm leaving, but that's what I say. I'm gonna make you the host, Katie. I just wanted to say hi to everybody and say I'll still be in touch. So
Jen, are you
Yeah.
around today?
yes,
Or you're not leaving the building?
no.
Okay.
Okay,
she's just gonna rob the the treasurer's office. with her.
On the way out.
Bandana.
I'm like this with all the office supplies, the tape, whatever. I love office supplies.
You
I'm just
can
gonna-
never have enough.
You can't have
paper
enough. You can't have enough. So
I was
yeah.
about to say, I hope that you take some white out for your own personal.
Oh, my favorite kind is this
We got
kind.
the tape?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That
Oh
is
yeah,
good.
that's coming with me. So is this, the stapler. The stapler's coming with me.
There you
'cause
go.
It stands up.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
It's
glad.
old. It's old. Well, I'll miss you all, but I know I'll see you all. So
Thank you for all your hard work.
oh
and
my, thank
dedication.
you. Thank
Jen,
you
it's
so
been
much.
great working with you over the years.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Good luck in everything.
Yeah,
you
good
do.
luck.
Thank
Love
you.
Echo
Thank you.
everything.
And I hope you guys I wish you luck. I'll be paying attention and keeping in touch. So
Right.
checking in with Katie and Woody and Tom and everybody. So I'm gonna make Katie the host and start clearing off my desk. So you guys have a good meeting.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Jen,
Jen.
thank you.
Thank
Send
you.
us well wishes. Bring us snacks in the cuckoo's nest over here.
I will. Cuckoo, I'll bring it. Don't you worry. Some treats. All right, you guys, good luck with the rest of the
Thanks, Kat.
agenda. Thanks.
All
Bye.
Okay. All right, so, Tom, we wish you luck in your bid tonight. If for some reason, things don't go in the direction, we can always change things up. But I think for now, Cassie and myself will be the two interview committee members, from our end. And we'll go from there.
Okay, great.
Great
Um,
luck, Tom.
I actually just submitted circulated my written statement to my
Your
board
statement.
members. Yeah.
Your statement. Okay.
Who else? So
Uh,
Amy's putting in a statement. Who else is Clark?
I would suspect so.
Yeah.
No, I have no
Paul-
idea.
Paul Grady seemed to think he was going to put in a statement along with Eric Potter. So we'll see who.
Yeah, Eric's not a friend of the effort.
Some days not.
Mostly on the not side.
Yeah.
So that closes kind of out the RFQ process. I think the only other thing I would say is that we have this list of consultants. Let me just bring it up quickly. Too much going on. So Cassie had put this together. There's, I think we're up to like 15 consultants on this, and this is kind of this is everybody that we could identify that's done work in this area. There are definitely different kinds of consultants, and Cassie, maybe you can just spend a second and talking about what you saw in terms of the types of consultants, because one of the things that we were going to do next was kind of organize this a little bit by type of consultant.
Yep, I'm sorry, that is on my plate. I have to do, I just haven't done it yet, but I will
Yeah.
do that. And one piece of feedback that I did hear on Brovitz, who did Situate, was that it was from an engineer in Situate, and he actually said that he thought Brovitz, a lot of that Situate content had been copy and pasted from Brookline that he had worked on. So just kind of food for thought. That's not to say that he's not a great candidate, but just a little bit of feedback, since I don't have any personal relationships with any of these consultants. So that's Brovitz. But I think what we tried to do when we kind of scanned the field for various types of consultants, we looked at attorneys, we looked at design architects that usually partner with consultants. We looked at kind of full spectrum, full service firms that do everything from analytical work to regulatory process and zoning overhauls. This kind of goes all the way up to the Cadillac, like the teams that work on the big urban zoning overhauls, including Somerville. So this is kind of soup to nuts of what I was able to come up with. As you kind of scroll down here, and again, I have to categorize it and sort them, but I think what we wanted to do is really just shake the tree on the types of consultants that can help us out here. So there's local firms, there's New England firms, there's firms that work out of Maine. So that it's just basically everything, including the sink, so the kitchen sink. But yeah, so like UTL is a full service design firm out of Boston, but they will partner with a consultant. And so the way that I thought about it is, if we do want to have, we added in the RFQ language that asked for reorganization and also design content and infographics. So a team like UTL would be someone to partner with a consultant that could help with the outreach and the presentations and everything like that. So when I organize this, what I'll do is I'll kind of say who's worked together between the attorneys, the consultants, the architects, so that we can actually see what teams have worked on which municipalities, so that it can help us understand how these teams have worked together too. I know that we're aware of the Mitchell, that group right there, right? Katie, you had found Richie and Mitchell had worked on various projects before. But these links are all live. So if you guys wanted to go through here and see some exemplary work, I think that might be helpful too. But Katie, I know that you had a request into Michelle just asking, how do we reach out appropriately to these firms if we wanted to, right before the RFQ goes public?
So typically what happens is, Michelle has already begun the advertising. She will quote unquote post the RFQ publicly on the state websites and the other websites that she typically goes to kind of open the process on Monday, the 10th. But in addition to that, you can have your head of procurement, Michelle Leary, send the RFQ directly to targeted firms. And so I think what she's going to say to us is, get me the email addresses for the firms that you're interested in.
Yeah,
and
so what I think
will
we'll have
send-
to do is probably go through, I mean, my guess is that that email address should be the business development group, member of that consultant. So I'll have to kind of fact check this, because a lot of these email addresses and contact info is for like the principal of the firm. So
Yes.
I'll have to do that. And I wonder, just in today's market, if everyone's crazy busy, if the state and kind of local public websites are not going to be as competitive as if we reach out to these guys directly. I don't really know the answer to that, but I mean, I would love to reach out to a few of these directly, whether it's through Michelle or through our working group, just to give members the heads up. I don't know if you guys have a different opinion on that, but.
My personal opinion is that we send it out unless there's somebody that we object to based on experience or knowledge. We send it out via Michelle directly to all of these firms.
Great.
And I think it would be a matter, as you said, of just getting the right target email. And I think the director of development, if it's available, if not, one of the lead principals is probably your next bet, because they will forward it internally. Tom, I see you have your hand raised.
Well, my concern about this list is that, again, distinguishing that this consultant is not writing the bylaw. And so.
No, I think that's very clear in the RFQ.
Well, I understand that, but the attorneys in this group are bylaw writers. And this is a marketing and presentation exercise, not a writing exercise.
Right.
And I would exclude all the attorneys or a firm with an attorney. We're not asking them to write the Somerville bylaw. I could see where a big city that has lots of zoning issues would sub out the actual writing, but we are doing this in-house with our own counsel. What we need is more a marketing person, and I don't know if there are PR firms that specialize in doing municipal kind of work and presenting initiatives, political initiatives, and selling them to a community. That's the kind of firm I think, yes, some technical expertise, but this is a marketing exercise, not a writing exercise.
No, I don't disagree with that. I think Katie and I had discussed, potentially if we did hire an attorney, they'd be partnered with someone, but there are the kind of quote unquote marketing groups like the RKG group and groups further up that would have more of the kind of presentation skills, outreach, PR, social media type stuff.
All right. That
No,
should be
I don't
focused.
disagree with you on that. I think it wouldn't behoove us to hire just an LP.
Yeah, so I wouldn't bother even sending it to attorneys, but I'll leave that to you guys.
Okay. I honestly, I don't think that they're going to qualify in terms of a sole attorney is not going to qualify, in my estimation, under how we've described the scope of services, because they're just not going to have the services that we're requesting. So my only point in sending it broad was that you never know if, I don't know, Bob Mitchell knows somebody that might be interested and he forwards it along. I don't, that was more my thinking, is like, let's get this. I'm more worried about the lack of bids than I am about inviting somebody that doesn't necessarily have all the qualifications we're looking for. I'm more worried about getting attention as little Cohasset than anything else.
Yeah, okay, understood.
But Cassie, I think, first order of business is probably getting the correct email identified for Michelle so that she can do that on Monday, Tuesday, and then we can organize the list as we've been talking about and understand some of the relationships. Because I do think that we are potentially going to get bids that have, a firm partnering with another firm in order to get the right scope of services that we've described in our RFQ. So I think understanding some of those relationships is going to be important.
I'll work on that.
Okay, great. So that's all I had on the RFQ, was just those two things. We've got our interview committee members and we kind of know what next steps are. So the next agenda item was next steps, and there were kind of three things. One was, what communication work do we want to do on our own prior to hiring a consultant? 2 was whether we wanted to do any surveys or other work of the community and permitting board in advance of a consultant coming on board. And then 3rd was like, what work do we want to do ourselves? But let's talk about kind of communications and PR work. We've had 2 opportunities to present themselves. Woody was contacted by a writer at the Anchor who was interested in doing a piece on the comprehensive zoning rewrite. It might help us kind of rebrand ourselves after special town meeting if we were to choose to do that. And then Tom had started already thinking about whether we put out some kind of executive summary to the community around what is a comprehensive rewrite, kind of reframing the narrative in layman's terms around why this is important to the community and what it might look like and what to expect. And so I think actually both of those are great initiatives, but obviously we need to talk about it as a full committee. So Woody, why don't we start with the Anchor first? Because we got some pretty bad coverage from the Mariner, which is not atypical. Quinn, who is like a Cub reporter, identified me as chair of the planning board. I think Woody was vice chair of the planning board. It was pretty poorly
I
written.
don't think I even saw that.
Yeah, you can have that position, by the way, Woody, if you'd like.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
I was like, wait, don't.
I'll get you too, Tom. Anyway, the Anchor is a newish, I don't know what, I think it's both electronic and it may have a hard copy analog newspaper, if you will, to take the place of the Mariner, which is, I won't get into. Its editor or one of the founders is a woman named Nina Welford, whom I have known for probably 40 years on and off, who grew up in Cohasset. I think she's fair and straight. I don't really know much more than I'd like to interview you. And the implication was on an ongoing basis, which I think is a big plus as opposed to a one-off, so that we could craft, modify messages and keep ourselves. I don't know what kind of readership this has got, it could be 20 people, but I would be in favor of it, but with choreographed messages and your support. I don't want this to be a one-off, a Woody kind of project here.
No, we would never send you out unarmed.
You would never let me free for fear of what I would say and do. I know.
Well, I'm just looking.
I know that's the case with me, so.
Yes. The Anchor Cohasset. They're on Facebook, right? I haven't.
Yeah, they're also doing one in Hingham, and
Hingham seems to be more active from what I've seen.
I have to admit, I can't recall the specific story, but one of the first things they posted on Facebook, I was just kind of suspicious of their motivations. And if they weren't, it was something about development. And it almost sounded like they were the mouthpiece for local development. I think it had to do with the harbor project. I'm not, not that I'm concerned about that at all.
Yeah. Let me see if
I'm curious as to their
I find it just being like a short scuttlebutt of kind of what's going around locally. No.
So this is what they posted on Facebook recently. So they've got 993 people.
Well, hell, that's That's more people than vote usually, so.
Yeah, but in context, Cohasset 143, which Kevin started 5 years ago, has like close to 9,000. So Cohasset 143 is still more of a powerful social media tool. So, they did an article on COVID cases. They did this sort of public, did a nice puff piece on the reindeer returning. We've got a grandson, correct?
Oh, yeah, but I didn't realize that this was, okay.
Yeah, so featured as youth
Was it, so
ambassador.
will it pick up stuff from Life on the, I thought it was Life on the Rocks. Was it just, it's just the anchor, Woody?
It's
I
just the
think
anchor. Yeah, it's a
it's just the
separate.
anchor. They feel like Life on the Rocks, but the
Guess I'm
analog
confused. Okay.
or the digital version. So here's the first thing on development. This,
Oh, right, the first sentence is plants stretches, Hingham, okay.
yeah, this is Hingham.
Yeah,
This
okay.
is about the Rotary in Hingham. Hockey, basketball. I mean, it feels like they're trying to be the new
The
online
new
Mariner.
Mariner, it sounds
Yeah.
like, but they probably don't have a lot of material.
No, a lot of it, it's Two Alarm Fire, Mave, underage. Oh, this is a good one. Our social host law. It feels like listen, I would feel comfortable doing something with the anchor after we kind of put together our own marketing piece. So I guess the way that I could see this working really well is if we take 2 weeks and write our own marketing piece around what the comprehensive rewrite is and what the mandate from the select board and the planning board has been, and just kind of get the facts out there. We could literally hand that 2-pager to Nina and the anchor, have Woody do a quick interview, and then have them basically republish that for us on a different platform. Hey, Peter, what's up?
Just from 40,000 feet.
Yeah,
You ought to, we ought to stage all of our communication closer to the annual town meeting. Okay, so I would be against putting anything in the anchor in January, February, or March, period. We should,
Because it'll feel like stale news, Peter? Is that
well,
what
the
you're
attention span is 0. So, unless in marketing, you always want to have your message out as close to your launch. Okay? So,
Unless there's a minority voice that's going to get ahead of us, and that's going to be stuck in people's.
well, that's a consideration for sure. But there's other ways to push back at the Clarks and people like
Yeah.
that.
I
You
would
know.
prefer to see neither, but my concern is that if we wait too long,
yeah.
it's too much to absorb and it'll be too, and
But
if we go out too early, but I think if we could get a commitment from these folks and others as well, Cohasset 143 and whomever, to do a series of interviews or pieces where it could build. But if it's going to be a one-time thing.
No, not a one-off, but still, the value of getting into the blogosphere is to be close to when the event's going to happen. Now, yeah, there is socialization that we need to do on why we're doing it. So I'm split a bit, but just technically from a marketing standpoint, you want to put your message as close to your event as you can. Or, the strongest part of your communication. But there is, as you mentioned, there is education that has to be done. So,
Yeah, especially,
but I view this as more of a fluff thing, more of a soft pedal without a lot of the details. Just
Well-
getting people socialized about why there's a need to do this.
I disagree in that we're not close to an event, we're close to town meeting. And I think we do need to put a statement out based on what happened at that meeting. And especially if we've been being pilloried in the Mariner, which I have not seen either, because I don't
It's
read
not,
it.
it's just badly written.
Well, okay, but it apparently is still a source of information for people. I think, Kevin will put our stuff out there, and when we were doing the citizens petitions in 2017, two of the people in our group were PR people, and we did a long-standing campaign that I think, paid off quite a bit. We came as close as I thought we were 6 votes away from a 2/3 vote. So I think with the degree of lack of education on this that Rob Jeffers has pointed out, which we all know about, we need to be out there constantly, and maybe, a lighter, fluffier thing further out. But I think what happened at town meeting deserves a detailed explanation of what we're up to and why. Right
As
now,
long as we're not seen as whining or sour
Yeah.
grapes.
My
But I
fear is that,
also, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say,
Nobody's-
Woody,
nobody's
I feel like the past should just be put in the past, and I wonder if it's worth almost like a rebrand effort, like this new marketing piece that we put together.
That's what I'm thinking.
Could be
is a
about
rebrand.
Yeah.
the RFQ, it could be about what, benefits we're giving back to the community, and almost just forget about what happened at town meeting, because I just don't want that to linger and people to just keep pointing at how
Yeah,
badly they went.
I don't think we should be, apologetic or defensive.
No.
We ought to just tell them, we ought to just start pushing hard on why the town in general is going to benefit from these changes to the
Yep.
bylaws.
Agreed.
And I would attach to that message something that I mentioned in my email of a couple of days ago. I would make, if we were to go forward with this, each interview or whatever, a topical in orientation, as opposed to some global, here's what we're going to do from start to finish. I would focus on a couple of hot button issues that people care about, and they would be different each time. But certainly we know that people are concerned about unrestrained development.
Well, it should be
There's other stuff.
it should be a consistent underlying message about the why.
Okay, right. I agree with that entirely.
Every time we communicate to the community, it should be why it's important for Cohasset to adopt these changes.
Yeah, and if you care about the harbor or you care about
Message,
housing. or you
message,
care about-
message.
Yeah, like mansions, here's
We have
why.
to stay, all of us have to stay on message.
And Katie, just food for thought. I don't know why it hasn't been more useful, but reflecting back on the goals of the master plan just hasn't really seemed to be
Yeah,
useful.
nobody,
I don't know why it should. I don't know why the master plan should
because there's
have
20
that.
people in town that have
Yeah,
paid attention to it.
I know. Unfortunately, I hate to say that. But
No, I don't disagree. That this, it's where our charge stems from, but it's not giving us much
the impact that we want.
impact that we want.
Not widely understood or known, or,
Mm.
nobody,
Mhm.
400
Well, I think-
pages, nobody who's read it.
Well, I think it's
Well,
it's partly
well-
that, and it's the what have you done for me lately? It's the issue du jour versus
Yeah.
the bigger plan perspective. But I do like this idea of focusing on the why. And I think in my mind, I agree that there should be kind of a rebranding, an opportunity for us to kind of refocus the dialogue towards the future and what's coming and why it's important to the community. I definitely think that the first conversation needs to be, what is the comprehensive rewrite? What does it mean? What's it going to look like? The RFQ is coming. We're hiring a consultant. There's just a simple newsflash that has to get out there. And Peter, I don't disagree with you about, needing to save some ammo for when we need it. But I think about the marketing rule of 7, which is like, people need to hear things, a single message 7
Yeah.
times before they absorb
Yeah.
it. So, like,
Right.
you
Yeah,
better
no
start
question.
now. if
Yeah,
we
no
expect
question.
to
I mean,
get
you know, you gotta be on message. Well, that's what I'm saying. If there's
Yeah.
gonna be a series of things in the anchor, then there has to be one underlying message at all times. Okay?
Right. You know,
And you can talk about a specific issue, but in that article, it has to go back to the message.
it strikes me that it would be possible for each of us, Paul, if he wishes, to take a topical area and be interviewed or written up, and I would include the Mariner or Cohasset 143 in this endeavor. But each of us take a topic and be, this month we're certainly a zoning bylaw working group, but we're featuring Cassie Rosano, or we're featuring Peter
Like the
Pescatore,
ambassador
who is
of
going to
that
talk
one.
about something that Cassie didn't talk about. But it's all part of this general activity. I think it would help give the committee some visibility as opposed to make this a kind of a one-person activity.
I think along those lines, I think that's a really good point, Woody, is almost someone becomes an ambassador for that one message. But, I don't know if our working group also has the support that it should. And so I wonder if the kind of where the message is coming from, the origin of it. I don't know the right answer to this, but I just want to say it out loud. Maybe it's not from our working group, or there's a different way to describe our working group, or if it's on behalf of the community, it's on behalf of the planning board, just a group of origin that has more support. And I hate saying that too, but
Again, I think that's a reaction to one person's dissent and attempts to undermine us, and we shouldn't go overboard. I think, we
I just don't want to be considered
supposedly
the
we
group
have
that's
wide,
anti-development, and it just creates
well,
it promulgates a connotation it's not accurate. And I don't know if
no,
that's,
then let's put, again, that goes back to the whole messaging of portraying what we're doing and why we're doing it, but
Yeah.
I don't want to overreact to the
Yeah.
minority viewpoint out there. Ostensibly, we have wide support from the other boards, the select board that matters.
Yeah.
Yes, we said earlier, they need to speak up more about that. But, I think we should be more positive in where we are than to necessarily kowtow to every minority.
but I like Woody's point of having these kind of ambassadors for
Yeah.
well-informed members of the community. It doesn't really matter what board we're from. It's just, we're well-informed, we're,
Well-
educated, and we're working towards the greater good for Cohasset.
Yep. I agree. And, we might be able, there are people who profess support for us in emails after town meeting and on 143. Maybe we try to encourage somebody who's a citizen who supports us to be interviewed by be willing to be interviewed by the anchor, or to say something on 143. That might help too.
I think getting some citizen communication involved is an important factor. To say, yes, that's correct. That is a benefit to the town. We like it. I think we need to get some conversations going in that direction from outside the committee. So
I could see, again, the anchor interviewing 2 or 3 people at one sitting, a citizen, a member of our committee. I mean, you could have a sort of a fairly open
Yeah.
discussion about why it's important, and we're coming at this from slightly different, perspectives, but we have a common interest and goal. Anyway,
I guess my perspective is this, like, I think that we can get the ball rolling in terms of and I think it's important for us to get the ball rolling in terms of just some basic facts about what the comprehensive rewrite's going to look like. I do hear Cassie's point about all of this coming from us, as like our marketing pieces about us. This is where I think a consultant coming in and having a third party that's writing this about the work being done is going to kind of put I guess, yeah, it sort of validates in some ways the work. that we can't self-validate, I guess is what I kind of hear you saying. It's like we're writing about ourselves versus having a third party. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have the validation coming from the select board or the planning board as easily as we hope. So we need to sort of generate some of this on our own, but we also need the help of a consultant to help us disseminate it and perhaps provide that third-party validation that is going to gain us some traction in the community. So I'm very supportive of coming up with a framework here of how we want to roll out some of this communication. I think that there's an easy first communication around what is the comprehensive rewrite. I think there's another second easy communication that could be written pretty quickly around what are some of the things that we've discovered based on all the research and benchmarking, sort of like a fun facts kind of thing that says like, here's what you didn't know about how residential zoning is in Cohasset. And then let's test the waters and see how we do with those. By then we'll have a consultant on board and we can kind of come up with the next round from there. I think for us to kind of envision a little far out without sort of seeing what the initial reaction is hard, but I would like to do something that begins to get the ball rolling, that a consultant could help us pick up and move further along once they're on board. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I agree. And, you know,
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody saw what I wrote. It's just an idea, but my gut reaction was to get something out quickly right after town meeting along the lines of what I wrote. But again, you know, I write in a certain way that not everybody agrees with, but you know, the town is clearly, the town as a whole is clearly in the dark about what we're up to. So, you know, what our purposes and our objectives. So
Tom, I
think we need-
appreciated the points made. I did, when I was reading it, I did feel a little bit of a tone of that it did feel a little reactive to me, and it kind of overshadowed some of your
Fine, it's
points.
fine,
But
and
I
that's
thought your
why- that's
points
why-
were very valid. But the only other comment I would make is, I wonder if we should reflect some of the comments made in Clark's memo, just to incorporate that.
No.
No.
No, I'm not going to dignify the stuff he's throwing out there right now.
Well,
Frankly. Me personally,
I guess I wanted to ask, was there any validity to the comments made about changing MGL chapter?
Can we just hold on that, the segue into Clark for just, I do want to talk about Clark and
Yeah,
his
I do
memo,
too.
but can we just not mix that into the
Yep.
quite into the communications?
Okay, my suggestion is that we look at some of these comments, Clark's and anything, I don't know if there was any recording at town meeting of some of these other speakers, and rather than attack them directly, I think you could weave almost a fun fact, as Cassie or somebody said just a minute ago, fun facts about, do you realize how many lots there are, undeveloped lots there are in Cohasset? How many are owned by little old ladies and, as part of their inheritance versus developers? And you don't have to sort of, there was just so much misinformation that it might, rather than sort of say these people are wrong and we're deliberately lying, deal with it more on a fun fact basis that, I don't know. But I would like to address some of these myths, the ones by Lily Sestito, we're going to all lose our property, our homes or
So
something.
I would too, Woody. That's my whole point about incorporating comments. Yes. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah, we don't have to attack her, but she was.
No, it's just incorporating it or reflecting on it and spinning it to be more accurate.
All right, well, let's write.
Yeah, it
this.
wasn't
Let's
just
write-
Clark.
let's write
That was my
something-
point. I wasn't, I
Yeah,
don't
no,
want
let's
to
write
Clark any
something.
more airtime.
Yeah, no, again, what I wrote is not the be all and end all. That's out there to be edited and commented on. But let's put something out there. That's
Yeah.
just
Yep.
So I think we're all in agreement that some kind of statement around what is this, I think you sort of said it right here, what is the zoning bylaw rewrite all about? It could be a simple statement like that. we do that one first, and then we queue up a kind of a fun facts, get to know zoning 101.
Yeah.
And I think if we write those, I actually think it might be good to kind of write the two in tandem, because I think some of the content might go into the get to know zoning 101, and another one, some of the content might go into what is this zoning bylaw rewrite all about. And if we kind of write the two at the same time, we can release one and then release the other soon afterwards. But I think those are our two best ideas right now, and it'll allow us to address some of the misinformation that was put out there at special town meeting, in particular about like, what is zoning all about, or why is this important? So I'm all for writing these. Tom did take a stab. I read it, Tom, and I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. There's obviously some changes I would make relative to sort of Toad, and I'm more than happy to beautify it so that it looks like something that people see and like, gosh, I want to pick this up and read this.
Yeah.
But I think if we start working on those two, we're going to feel better if we start doing that. So, are there any volunteers to start working on this? And we can certainly divide and conquer and have somebody start with the why is what is the zoning rewrite all about, and then have somebody else do the get to know zoning, or why zoning is important.
Yeah, what is the purpose of zoning? I mean, I'd be happy to do something, with that focus. And which then I think you could deal with some of Clark's concerns, saying that we really don't want to slavishly follow state law because Cohasset is a unique special place, which is all bullshit, because we have to follow state law. And I wouldn't get aggressive about it, but I think I would try to tie in, why are there 330 towns in the state that have zoning bylaws that follow state law, articulate state law, most of them, not all. And why is this seen as a good thing as opposed to a threat to property owners?
So why don't we do this? Why don't Tom and I team up on doing the why zoning rewrite? What is it all about? And maybe Cassie, you and Woody team up around the purpose of zoning, getting to know zoning 101. I mean, you have, Cassie, at your fingertips all of the residential stuff that we could pull in here or there, why this is important in terms of like what Cohasset looks like today. And that'll be the focus of our next agenda, is to try and bring those drafts forward, have people read and comment on them, and then we can be in a position to hopefully publish some of this, publish the first one in February.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to feel more empowered by just starting to change the dialogue a little bit.
Yeah,
I'll
the
look
other
at
thing
the
I think as this evolves, I'd love to see us get a very friendly advisory committee member to basically join the PR effort. And we have our planning board member in Tom, but go down through the committees and just have people say, look, my committee is behind this, or we're all in this together, or we're all property owners, we're all whatever. And we're not trying to take people's rights away or transform the town, but to protect it.
I think it's this building advocates from a whole different bunch of perspectives. And I think, I don't know, it was you that said it, Cassie, but like having citizens at large that are willing to sort of speak up, whether it's somebody like a Rob Jeffers, or others, are willing to sort of lend their voice.
Woody said that, yeah.
Yeah.
You certainly have to get one or two from Concom. People pay, that is a concern, that's a general concern. We could just go down through the boards. I mean, hell, I'd have public health. Somebody speaking about public health's perspective on some of this. Well, don't ask me how, but right now, but.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, just
Okay.
a broader number of faces or advocates.
Yep. Well, and I think that's just, it's just A, smart, but B, it's also a reaction to the fact that we sort of know the political realities now of how far the select board is willing to stick out their neck on this. And also, you know, where other boards are. So I think it's smart for us to begin to build those advocates.
Well, we have Jack on the select board
Yeah.
in favor. I don't know what kind of following he has. He had enough to get elected. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd love to see one other.
Yeah, I agree.
Jean needs to step up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
she's been quiet.
And on, you know,
Well,
on
she's
the-
got her big initiative is the schools, so she's saving all her powder for that.
Yeah, I
well,
don't
if
disagree.
she sees the tie-in between zoning and the schools, and maybe she can be convinced of that, she might take it more of an interest. If we build out to our full capacity, I think the ability of us to financially afford a standalone school system is in jeopardy. I don't think we can raise the tax dollars to support it.
Well, look,
People need to see that connection, that what we do in zoning affects how we are able to support a school system. It's a tough connection
it
to
is
make.
connected. It is connected, no question.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's not get into school.
Guys, I actually have to jump. I had an 11:30 call that I have to hop on. I apologize.
Yep, no worries. Thank you, Cassie.
You wanted then to talk about Clark a little bit? I don't know, maybe Cassie should be part of this last piece.
I did.
What I was trying to articulate was if there was anything within his memo that had validity that we should address, we should. And I didn't know when I read it what was true, what was false.
I thought he was picking on, I thought he was spreading misinformation on my
Okay.
reading.
So I think that we should address things like that because it's a minority voice, but it has legs.
Yeah,
So
does anyone know how
I
broadly?
don't know
that
what's
was-
true or what's not though. So
Yeah, how broadly did this memo go? I never even got
Exactly.
it. Until a
Does
day
anyone
ago.
know how broadly this was sent around? Was it on 143 or, other
not on-
social media or?
No,
No.
it's been circulated, I think, now to the planning board and to this board.
And that's it.
Chris has seen it. Lauren had a very good response to it yesterday that she circulated. I don't think Chris and people in town hall are gonna act on this at all. But, we have a town council. We should engage her to look at this.
Well, town council has. I mean, she supported our,
Yeah, no, but
the words,
he's
the very
making,
words.
he's playing lawyer here, and it's not to say a non-lawyer can't be right. But, let's have our town council, if we need, let's get her opinion on what he's alleging before any.
but
of us
and there
do.
just were some acquisitions like saying that we changed case law. It might have been a little further down, but
Yeah,
It was,
I really objected to, the one where he was saying that we had, this one. That, no, not this one.
you said there's no SGC ruling as outlined here. This is a misrepresentation that leads the leader to believe there's a court decision that these 4 criteria are in one decision. And A, I don't believe that's what we were saying. And B,
Yeah,
you're
this
right.
this is one of them that I really objected to.
I think he's wrong on that, by the way. I mean, again, we all
But
have.
We were just saying here that the courts have generally supported this,
yeah.
okay? And to come out and say there's no exact ruling, no, well, maybe there's, a ruling on each one of these. And maybe there's not one, supreme.
Well, the other thing that Clark is doing, which is clever, misleading, is that court cases are almost evenly divided from a precedential standpoint, setting standpoint, between Supreme Judicial Court and Appeals Court. The Appeals Court has weighed in on most of these. And
Right.
it's as valid as, you know, in the absence of any contrary ruling on the part of the Supreme Court. So he's playing sort of a word game. There is no SJC
Yeah.
ruling. There is indeed appeals court rulings
Okay,
that
so-
that
I
have
think
the
Woody-
weight. Wouldn't you
Woody,
say,
I think
Tom?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, until the SJC rules, the appeals court is the law.
Yeah.
That's why it
So
exists.
he's playing a game here, a perceptual game that
Right.
that we're inventing something.
Well, he's taking advantage of the lack of that
Yeah.
lack
I
of
think-
understanding that particular point.
Right.
But my concern is, what's Clark's motivation? Is his practice,
Yes.
is he peddling the loopholes in Cohasset's bylaws as the foundation of his, professional practice? Why is he so strident
Well,
about attacking this?
Well,
Does anybody have an opinion?
let's.
Guys, I'm gonna jump. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to working with you guys in 2022.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks, Cassie.
Yeah.
You and Woody have your assignment.
Let's be careful here about this, about describing motivations right now. I mean, he's expressing a view that I think harkens back to Bob Sturdy when we first approached him about a master plan in 1998 or 9. He said, well, we don't care about it. We're not interested in it. We don't do planning. The bylaw is perfectly written. I think he's now the modern echo of a view that Cohasset needs no change, that we're unique to the rest of the planet Earth, and everything is perfectly written and everything has been hunky-dory. Well, we're facing what, 2 new subdivision plans tonight.
Tonight.
You know,
Yeah,
People are going to start developing because land prices have gotten to a point that we really haven't seen, even in relative terms. I think I think Woody, you said once before in the 60s, a lot of land was worthless, well, it's not worthless anymore. And I think we're going to see development, and Cohasset's going to change whether we want it or not. And it's,
I don't want to get into the merits of Diab Lane per se, but I think that's a perfect example. Because the zoning bylaw definitions were turned down, we have 2 undeveloped lots on Diab Lane that really don't have legal access, but they're going to probably be able to go forward because our bylaws are silent on what state law says. Now, yes, you can go back into case law and adjudicate all this stuff in court. But had that passed, I think we would have not necessarily a negative, but the owners of these lots would have to make improvements to Diab Lane's safety and access so that it could service, in fact, a number of other homes.
Right.
But you can't just keep, as with Dolan Lane, you can't just keep adding houses and say 8 feet wide cart path suffices. It would for 2 houses. It won't for 10.
Right.
And
So
anyway.
And by the way, I think, Woody, you circulated them again. I think that, there are materials that we recently got on the planning board about A&Rs and the adequacy of the way issue. There's all kinds of materials that are out there that summarize the law. And Clark thinks there's one single case that decides everything. And we know from those summaries that are readily
Yeah,
available.
the law is a living, evolving
Right, there's
thing.
multiple cases, and they turn on very, very particular facts in some cases where it was decided one way in one case, one way. The principle remains the same, but there could be different outcomes because of the unique facts. And Clark is aware of these materials. So, when he puts out all of this stuff, our answer, yes, let's have town council answer him, but there's materials out there that we all have readily available to us. And if we haven't seen it, everybody should see it. That defines the law on adequacy of ways and adequacy of frontage and all of these issues. We're not making this stuff up, but
Yeah, that appears word for word in a lot of bylaws, not every town's bylaws, but we had a situation again on Dolan Lane that was decided last night where some case law was selectively extracted. In other words, it wasn't the full finding. It might have been a very different circumstance or a very different conclusion, but it was a pick and choose. And if you read some of the earlier material on the Stolen Lane project, you would say the owner, yeah, really is making a good point, except that when you actually read these cases, he's misconstruing deliberately, I think.
You know, anybody in town, any developer is going to take advantage of whatever ambiguity we can find.
Right.
And Diab Lane appears to be one, although there's case law about that estoppel and everything, but whether the town can then force them to upgrade the road, I think is still an open question. You know, the land court decisions may give him the right to access it, but it might, you know, access it by what? By a 5-foot wide piece of concrete? Or
Yeah, and for what purpose? I mean,
Right.
you know, accessing a single family dwelling is very different than accessing it for a barn or a tool shed. Anyway, there's
yeah, I mean, so again, you know, there's an email that he sent on the 16th. It was directed at me, but copied to my whole board. I have a response to it that I'm going to circulate later to my board. You know, where one of the attitudes is that, number one, a bylaw should only be in response to an identified problem. I don't think that's the only reason it's one reason you pass a bylaw or any kind of statute. It's not the only reason. There seems to be the belief that, you know, everything we are doing in this group has to be a direct has to have a direct connection to the master plan, and something that you know, the allegation is being made that we're going beyond the master plan. And, you know, to Cassie's point earlier, yeah, I think maybe we do need to remind people about what the master plan is and what it does, because he was part of that process, and now he's criticizing that process or criticizing the result of that process. But, you know, there's a lot of twisting and things going on that, you know, I just don't know how much we need to respond to and dignify.
So I think for our own purposes, not having Carolyn at least opine on the case law behind qualified way and whether our definition of qualified way differs materially from how it's stated in 81L, which I believe it does not. And then the second point around the language that we use in the informational summary to describe the SJC standards for buildable lot are two things that I think we should have documented from council on our behalf. Whether we choose to circulate them or not, I think is a separate decision, but I don't want to be caught 4 months from now in a position where we're being told we didn't take concerns seriously. Like, I want to make sure that we do our work well. And I think if this is out there, even if it's just Clark communicating with the town manager and now being circulated to the planning board, us not taking this seriously enough to at least have Carolyn provide us an opinion on qualified way and this reference to SGC to make sure that we got it right.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be afraid of spending a little bit of money, because we've already been told we can do that. And Lauren assured me that if we requested an opinion from Carolyn on this memo, we would get it.
Yep.
And then second, you know, like, we've got nothing to lose here to figure out if there was something we could have done better. I mean, like, I would hate to have us 6 months from now bring the same language back and Clark trotting out the memo saying they never addressed these concerns, where we could say, yeah, we did. Here's the council for opinion.
Yeah, no, we have to address this.
Okay.
But remember too,
It can't be left to just sit there.
Okay.
I agree, but remember that he may not be satisfied. I mean, one of the points of his December 16th email was to ask for all kinds of research material and stuff that we've done to back this up, trying, death by study. And he's going to continue to do that to us. And yes, we respond to it, but understand that his then response to that may be, well, show me the backup, show me the study, show me the material, and until you show me that this is illegitimate. And that's what he'll say to the rest of the town. So understand that he's, I'm of the point right now, it doesn't matter what we do, he's not going to agree with this for whatever reason. What his underlying motivation is, I can't.
Well, Peter raised a question, Tom, and you might be in a better position than I to answer him, or Katie. And that is, what is his real motivation? Is he the developer's go-to architect?
Yeah, is he part of the special interest?
I think part of it has been his own proposal to your board, which I think has created a conflict of interest for him to sit in on our regulation hearing that's continued for the 26th. Now, depending on what he does, whether he's going to appeal it or file a new application, his conflict may go away. But I unfortunately, this is only a personal opinion, think that has been his motivation. And I have said as much at a planning board meeting, and without trying to name him and put him on the spot. But beyond that, I don't, again, I just, like I said earlier, I think he's echoing a long-held view that everything is perfect and hunky-dory and Cohasset, and we don't need to change anything. Whether he's doing that on his own, for his own personal opinion, or now he's become the mouthpiece for others, I can't say. I mean, I know that he's been part of this master plan process. He has professed on numerous occasions his overall support for the process, but now comes specifics, he's not on board. I can't figure out completely why. I don't know if it's about internal planning board dynamics.
Katie, do you have a take on this?
I don't have a take on motivations. I think everything Tom said is perfectly valid speculation. I think at some level, I am more interested in us doing the right thing as a working group in terms of being perceived as serious individuals who take our work seriously.
Yeah.
And so I think there is no harm, but only benefit in us doing a preliminary opinion from Carolyn to make sure that we were on solid ground. And if we are, then we leave it there and we file the opinion away until we need it. And then we take it out and say, you know what, we did do our due diligence. We followed up on the concern. I don't.
But that isn't enough. You need to discourage, you need to go after Clark a bit.
Well,
and call him out for misinformation.
Well, let's first
before we get down the road.
Okay, let's get the opinion first and then figure out how we disseminate it. But I'm more concerned about us being perceived as reputable and taking our work seriously and taking concerns seriously than necessarily ascribing motivations at this point. And I think I'm a little bit in the mode of doing what's right for the community, doing what's right for the working group. And if we do the right communications, eventually we should prevail with enough citizens. Like, I don't disagree that it would be nice to punch back, but I'm just not sure we're going to get satisfaction, or we're just going to land out with the result, which Tom was referring to, which is another volley of information requests, and we're going to be caught in that perpetual cycle. So like,
well, if he materially put out misinformation, I think he needs to be called on.
Right now, this is just, it went into the town manager's inbox, and Lauren has said, Chris is not going to meet with you. This issue is over. It's been referred back for further study. Our committee and the planning board were made aware, and it's stopped there. I think that us taking it seriously and asking the opinion and then circulating that opinion to the town manager and potentially the planning board and ourselves can be that rebuttal. But like, let's get the opinion first. I think we're all saying that getting Carolyn's opinion is a the first step in this process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what town meeting showed us, I think, is that, the minority has the power of sowing a lot of doubt in people's minds. And I wholeheartedly agree with Katie that we just need to make sure all of our Ts are been crossed and Is dotted, and we do thorough work that we can get up and defend.
Yeah,
And
but-
that we're not trying to rush something through, push something through, that this is thoroughly researched. And I mean, I've tried to say to people, this is the most thoroughly researched thing I've seen this town do in 36 years.
Right.
And people need to be aware of that. But, your sentiment, Peter, I can tell you is shared by others. We have an issue, coming up with this regulation where we are at pointed odds with him. And, so we will have to deal with him on that
We
basis.
will also, I think, have to tuck in the back of our minds, I don't know how to handle this, but Clark seems to be a very adept at raising an issue. The wording has changed. There's a problem. He never defines what the problem is, if the wording change is significant or insignificant, but he's a master at raising doubt that we haven't done homework or other people have some nefarious motivation. But he doesn't offer a solution if it's a problem, or even identifying what the problem is. It's
Yeah,
just that it's different.
Yeah, like I said, his December 16th email clearly takes the position that you should only be writing a bylaw to respond to a problem. Okay, well then tell me what the damn problem is you think that exists or doesn't exist. But
Yeah, well, in that last,
beyond him, there's this view of unforeseen consequences, which is a Cohasset old-time favorite. But that goes along the same lines. Okay, there's these unforeseen consequences. Well, everybody admits we can't write the perfect bylaw that foresees everything. But don't throw out unforeseen consequences unless you have an example of what a possible consequence can be. And it gets thrown out all the time in the same way, and then stymies any kind of effort of moving forward.
I mean, I think you're not wrong. I mean, there was a moment during a special town meeting where this whole issue of like there are 4 ways, not 3, got thrown out, and it was being represented that we had changed state law. I mean, literally, we split A into 1 and 2. I mean, the language is verbatim, except for the fact that we split into 2 for clarity. And then,
yeah, if you had added the word or
yes,
to away, which the town clerk, that would be a literal
it would be literal. And
proper
so like,
copy. So it doesn't change the meaning.
it doesn't change the meaning. And then when it says subdivision control law became effective in the city or town, the fact that we stated the date that it became effective, again, that's not a material change, that's a clarification as it relates to Cohasset's specific date.
Yeah.
And then proposed use of the land abutting versus proposed use of abutting lots. I mean, again, to me, that's
Yeah.
like shortening the language to make
Yeah,
it.
it's
clarified.
just wordsmithing for effect.
Yes.
Okay, that's all it is.
But I, again, like, this is gonna take Carolyn 30 seconds to write up the fact that A versus B says the same thing. I think the one that I'm more concerned about is the one that you had articulated, which is this one where
Yeah.
he's rebutting our use here. So I think this is the one that Carolyn may need to spend a little work on, and maybe we learned something from that exercise. I don't know. I think that we're going to just come up with evidence that we approach this correctly. And Clark's memo oversimplifies how SJC appeals court and case law come together in order
Right.
to build support for what needs to be in our bylaws, which is.
I think the statement, I think the language is pretty clear that the compendium of all the courts give you this,
Yes.
okay? And it's not one individual case anywhere, but in general, case law supports this. all case law. And,
Yeah,
you know, and for him to, you know, pick it apart that way.
Or I
Yeah.
could only find 5 cases with the Supreme Court that blah, 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 qualified.
Yeah.
case. He must have a lot of time in his hands.
Oh, yeah,
Honest to
well,
God.
that's why I question why is he going to these lengths? To, you know, this is way above just having a burr in your saddle.
Well,
Yeah, I agree,
in-
Peter.
In part, I watched the December 7th hearing before the zoning board. He's thriving on the ambiguities that might exist in our bylaw.
Which we're trying
And-
to fix.
And I think, you know, the definitions he saw as a precursor to the regulation change, and the regulation change, if it were to pass, might compel him or the buyer of a new house to upgrade Dolan Lane.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
And that it's as clear, and you know, he's also making an argument of public record now that Dolan Lane, that's whatever width it is safe because it's small.
as a matter of fact, it's better than safe. It's an improvement because it's undersized. And
which is-
you are forced to slow down because
by
it's
the
got
way-
rocks in the road.
by the
I mean-
way, there's major construction going on in the back of Dolan Lane right now.
What's going on?
I walk my dogs up there right behind Dolan Lane, and there's
Yeah.
trucks and earth
It's
moving
Stasco's-
equipment.
Yeah,
going on
Stasco's-
right now.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Stasco has 3 lots, one of which he's developed, and he got a building permit for a second one under Bob Egan and went through Concom, and that's what's being developed now. And there's a third that still is potentially,
And they scraped that lot bare, by the way.
right. So, again, like ascribing, I think we're all eyes, what I take away from this is that we're all eyes wide open, that there are some motivations that can be understood, and then there's some that we may never understand, but like, I'm not willing to repeat, and nor any of us willing to repeat special town meeting without a lot of advocacy work in terms of building advocates, in terms of a communication strategy. It's just too easy to be picked apart. And we won't repeat that again, but let's, if everybody's in agreement, let me go back to Lauren and Chris, and Lauren told me that we are authorized to have Carolyn work on our behalf on issues that we see her, we need help with. And I think this is the first one that we put back, just so that we make sure that that we're on completely solid ground with what we recommended. And there's not any gotchas that Clark has pointed out in his memo. And let's get that opinion done, and I'll see if I can get it done for the next meeting. But let me see what Carolyn's timetable looks like, and I'll report back to the group.
Done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's never boring in Cohasset, let's put it that way.
Never is. No.
And it's hard to, as we started the conversation, it's hard to feel good about your work on behalf of the community when you're sort of being shivved in the back, like, on your way to walk the dog.
Now, you know,
Be
every
careful.
bad event usually has some bright spot to it, and the bright spot may be, I believe, will be, not maybe, will be, that we'll be much more buttoned up. We'll have a more, in the final analysis, community support to understand what we really are trying to do. My greatest regret of the last year is that we lumped all types of undeveloped lots into a big bucket, including people that had a pre-existing, actually legally non-conforming lot that was undersized. And, you know, it was mom and dad that owned it, or grandpa and grandma owned it. And that's very different from tracts of land that have, you know, 5, 8, 10, 15 parcels of land. And I think we've got to make that distinction between, we're not out to rob people's heritage or screw over little people. What we're here to do is put some parameters around larger scale development.
Yeah, it's this whole conversation around what smart development, smart growth means, which is not no growth, but it means growth that has some parameters around it. And what those parameters are, I think you just articulated. It's not every mom and pop, but it is.
And
it
that's,
is
and that stuff is easily fixed. I mean, you
Yep.
know, it doesn't take a lot of work, but that's, those sort of misconceptions we can deal with. I think we'll end up with something better than we might have otherwise.
Yeah. So I know Tom has to get off to be recertified as a notary public, and I actually have to go pick up some kids from school in a little bit. So we've got 2 follow-ups. One is beginning work on some of the communications, outbound communications. Woody and Cassie are going to start one on the purpose of zoning and getting to know zoning 101. And Tom and I are going to work on this. Why is the comprehensive rewrite important communication? I will follow up and get the legal opinion on Clark's memo in process. I guess the one question is, when do we want to meet next?
Well, I think one of the first orders of business is communications. And of course, we are waiting for the RFQ, but nevertheless, I think we could maybe, why don't we set a date for work product, both Cassie and me on our side, and
Yep.
you and Tom on your side. And whenever those are ready, we should sit down and feel comfortable that whatever we come up with a consultant is not going to be at odds with
Okay.
what we're doing.
All right. So let's do this. Let's give ourselves 2 weeks to do that work. So let's give ourselves the deadline of the 19th to produce drafts that we can then circulate to the group. And then let's schedule our next working group meeting for the week of the 24th. Tom, I know that
Okay.
you've got planning board on the 26th. So do you want to do it on the 27th? Do you want to do it earlier in the week?
Let's see, I mean, I can do it that Wednesday morning.
Do it on Tuesday, the 25th. We could,
Tuesday would have to be in the morning. I have a Zoom hearing at 2. And in the afternoon, the 24th, Monday, would have to be in the afternoon.
so I'm good on the 25th in the morning.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I
All
can
right.
do.
And I might even have Carolyn's opinion by then, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
I would hope, yeah. Hey, but by the way, Katie, did anybody take any transcription of comments made at town meeting? Because I'm thinking this was much more than just Clark Brewer. We had a litany of people get up, including others, as I mentioned, Lily Sestito, who know better. Not that I want to sort of attack them publicly, but I'd like to understand how they framed an argument so that we could really jump in front of that one and say it might be a concern of X, but here's, I don't know.
There may be an audio record.
Because I heard stuff that I just, you know, obviously we all did, that made me want to grit my teeth because it was really a misstatement.
Well, I think there may be an audio record.
So I'll reach out to Tracy today and I'll report back to the group to find out if, you know, who knows, like Don from 143 TV could have been there. I didn't really notice. And there's the guy that does the audio who wears the kilt,
Right.
you know, like.
So I think there's probably an audio record.
Okay, let me see if I can track that down, because I not that we necessarily want to relive that night, but I think you're right, Woody.
But we should go through it. I agree with Woody. We should
Okay,
make sure we have an answer for their concerns.
okay, let me track that down. I will try and do that.
Okay,
And be cognizant of the fact that, what's his name, Bjorklund, you know, non-lawyer, is probably one of the more knowledgeable people I know about zoning law. He knows a lot of
Mhm.
stuff. He's
Yeah.
been successful in the courts. You know, other people may think they want to be like him, but take Bjorklund's comments seriously,
Okay.
you know, and.
Even the was,
Well, you know, yeah, stupid things, but I mean, in terms of his substantive knowledge of the law is pretty damn good
yeah.
for a non-lawyer. So he should be taken somewhat seriously. As long as he owns property, he's going to be given the opportunity to speak, I'm sure. But, you know, getting back to that town meeting too, you had your comments with the selectmen, which I think were great, but, you know, we also need to reach out to Dan Evans. He's the moderator and he calls the shots about how the meeting is run. And I think he needs to have a better appreciation of transparency and, you know, disclosure of what people do before they get up at town meeting. We ask everybody's address, but we don't ask necessarily.
I think that sort of guidance should come from the select board, and I think we can
Yeah,
help
no,
them
I agree.
by framing a statement or a policy that they could endorse.
Yeah.
I actually think that maybe one of the things, if we're going to go through the transcript of this meeting, like let's note speaker address and then whether they had what their financial interests are. So
Well,
that-
nobody mentioned that.
Well, I know, but like we know that. I mean, like if we don't know it, we can. find
Oh,
out.
I see. Well, yeah.
Because here's my
I
thing.
mean, well,
Like, if
we
we're
had
gonna
a
make-
simple thing that a speaker, nobody knew who she was married to. All the new people in town don't know who she was married to, but
I
some of
didn't.
us did.
Woody filled me in. He.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So I think just for us to go through, if we're going to do this exercise and catalog, either were, I don't know, 25 speakers and 20 of them had financial interests that were undisclosed is a pretty powerful statement. And
Yeah,
that
that would be the data to get the board to
yeah,
lean on the moderator a little more.
or just
Yeah,
set
I
a
think that's
policy.
perfectly appropriate to bring up without names.
Correct.
That's, you know, 20 out of 25 or whatever, have a financial
Yeah,
stake.
Okay.
Either
That's
as
actionable-
realtors or
that's
developers
actionable
or
data.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actionable data.
Let me get the transcript of the audio transcript first, and then we undertake that exercise. But I agree with you that it's one of the points I raised, that the average citizen's ability to evaluate the speaker beyond that they're a nice old lady in pink pants that was speaking intelligently.
Right.
It
right.
just.
I think
goes
it would be
beyond that.
perfectly appropriate to ask every speaker, frankly, regardless of zoning. What is it? Do you do business in the town of Cohasset? Or do you have a financial interest in, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be some way. I think it's relevant for a lot of things. Schools, goodness knows.
Yeah,
You
no,
have a child in the school system. I mean, some people who are terrific
Well,
anti-vaxxers
that-
didn't have children in the school system, but they
That
were
may-
complaining.
that may not, questions like that may not be allowed.
Okay, well,
yeah. Well, I guess I
I can only hope, but you're right.
Yeah.
You're
But
right.
I think it starts with data, like how.
Yeah, the
skewed-
data will speak. The
Yes.
data will speak. If it's there, you know, if we can ascertain that all these people had a motivation, then that's data.
Yeah,
Okay,
and but we have to be allowed to point that out. I think the decorum that Danny, you know, the certain level of decorum Danny imposes is that if I got up and said, Mr. Brewer has a conflict of interest here and here's why, he'd call me out of order.
They call you out of order, yeah, right.
Right, but if you stood up and said 5 people have a conflict of interest that are speaking out of the 10 that have spoken, or many people have appear to have a conflict of interest, I think that's okay.
yeah, I think
That's democracy. You know, if
Yeah.
you've got an interest in the issue, then you can speak out. So I don't think we'll win on that one.
Okay,
no, but I think pointing out the level to which the dialogue
Yeah,
is.
pointing out that there is a block vote here. There is a
Yes.
block issue here that we may, that we may want to control somehow.
And this all goes to like, it was certainly a night of lessons.
Just disclosure, if we could get disclosure would be a huge win.
Okay. All right, so I've got that as an action item. I'll shoot that off when I have a chance this afternoon and get that in the works. So we've got our next meeting on the 25th at in the morning. Let's say 10:30 again. Does that work, Tom?
10:30 is good for me.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great, and I'll circulate a recap of just sort of the highlights to Cassie and others on the committee that weren't here in terms of what the next steps are, and we'll go from there.
Okay,
And I would urge everybody tonight to try to watch our meeting. We have two preliminary subdivision proposals off of Cedar Lane and Black Horse Lane, somewhat the same area. They're both looking to put in the state's incredibly generous 8-year zoning freeze. In both of these situations, our insistence on having a more adequate way is going to create, a bigger and better road. But it's also encouraging subdivision. And one of the unspoken things we haven't talked about, but Katie and I talked about this, is that when we've been looking at the table of area regulations, we've been focused on house size. And the 8-year zoning freeze would get around any changes we make there. But we haven't focused too much on frontage and how what we have today. I believe a change was made in the 60s to get away from subdivisions and cul-de-sacs to go to, common driveways and pork chop lots. But if we deal with frontage, are we going to go back to what other suburban towns do and what we had prior to 1968 or 9? And it's something we need to think about. And then these two things coming forward, if they get their zoning freeze, well, they're locked into the 50-foot frontage. It means more lots potentially. Yes, it'll mean better quality roads of access, but we need to start thinking about this. The word is out that the rewrite is coming. Nobody knows what we're planning to do exactly, and we don't know what we're planning to do with respect to dimensions, but I won't be surprised if we see more applications that try to freeze our zoning and,
They have to freeze zoning, they have to get to a definitive subdivision plan. So like
Yeah.
the preliminary.
It can't be an A&R.
Well, and a preliminary approval is not a definitive, so they have.
but in Lauren's sending out the notices to us, she put in the notice the statement of intent that these people are ultimately seeking the zoning freeze. But it's just a larger picture that
Yep.
when we think about the table of area regulations, we have to think about what are the implications of staying the way we are versus making some changes to return to perhaps more suburban-like frontage.
Yeah.
Frontage
Right.
requirements. So,
And again, I
these-
think
these things are these two are particularly, beginning to bring that discussion forward for us, whether we like it or not.
Well, the Cedar Lane situation also has grades to deal with. There's a significant drop off there.
But it's interesting, if I'm reading the diagrams correctly, Woody, is that they are doing JAK and Chip Smith have now partnered so that Chip Smith is allowing for a subdivision with road with a cul-de-sac at the end of it to be developed along his property. And so Chip Smith, the 70 Black Horse Lane, if I'm reading the plans correctly, is being shown in the subdivision plan as one lot, but it's now Chip Smith's lot, which is being split into 4, his existing home plus 3 more, I believe, off of a subdivision cul-de-sac. And the Cedar Lane, the additional 2 off of Cedar Lane, is not actually coming in off of Cedar Lane. It's
Okay.
technically the end of the cul-de-sac on Black Horse that touches 2 of those Cedar Lane lots. So and it's like the preliminary subdivision, they're submitting 2 preliminary subdivision plans, 1 for 5 off of Black Horse and 2 off of Cedar, but they're all using the same access point of the expanded Chip Smith easement on Black Horse Lane. So it's pretty convoluted if you're just an average citizen looking at this to get the full picture of what the development's going to look like, because it's actually, as far as I can tell, 7 homes off of a cul-de-sac at the end of Black Horse Lane. In addition, 70 Black Horse Lane is being shown as one unit, where we already know that JAK has tried to submit a split of that 1 into 4. So are there another 3 potential homes that are not being disclosed in this preliminary subdivision plan that could get tacked on at a future date? I don't know. I mean, so this is where I think there's some fundamental questions in terms of like, why are these getting filed separately? What is the full picture here? Because it's not being disclosed currently in what's going before the planning board tonight. So there's some detective work that has to happen at the planning board level to truly understand what the development profile is going to look like.
Tom, is your understanding of subdivision control law that you can in fact do this in pieces or segments? In other words, I could have a 5-unit subdivision and come back later on with 3 more units, or yes, I could. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you could. Well, the thing is, would you come back with the additional 3 units and try to do it as an A&R, because now you have a roadway, you know, a so-called adequate roadway now servicing that land by the prior subdivision. So
Jesus, you
Yeah,
ought to
I
be a
think-
developer. You're so sleazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Jeez.
those are the questions that need to get teased out here is like, do we have the full picture of the development impact here? And
By
again,
the way, that one of those cases that you gave us that the town council cited for that Dia Blaine opinion,
Yeah.
it was pre-subdivision control law, but it was done through the land court and it was done in pieces. There were different versions of the plan, as there usually is with registered land, that kept adding lots as it went along. That case, you know, talked about plan A, B, D, and I. And at each one of those different steps of a plan being submitted, there was more lots being added. So it was pre-subdivision control law, but it was nevertheless a subdivision that was added onto over time. So he probably can do it, but then my question is, can you do the other 3 lots coming by A&R? Or does he already think he has those 3 lots by A&R because of what the planning board did in, I don't know, 2017? They made some A&R decisions that were problematic at tying our hands today. But
again, this is
Yeah.
the layers of complexity on top of what is an environmentally sensitive area, where like, it just seems strange to me that we can be having these preliminary subdivision conversations when there are some pretty big Conservation Commission wetlands questions that still remain open-ended, and you can get a zoning freeze with a definitive without having had to explore the wetlands implication. So it's
Yeah, and I don't believe an A&R can create a lot with less than required area. Well, it can, but it's not buildable. It still
No,
has
but-
to be.
right.
No, there's enough to
Zoning.
take that 70 and make it into 3.
Yeah.
35,000 square foot RB lots. So anyway, well, I'm definitely tuning in tonight. So
How do we get
guys,
a link? We just go to the planning boards.
Tom, what time would this issue be taken up?
We schedule, we start at 6:30 and we schedule all hearings for 6:30 and then just take them in order as we get them
Okay,
to them. I mean, our first order of business, which is, I'm going to guess, take up 15, 20 minutes, maybe a half hour, is our selection of the 2 representatives to the committee, to the
yeah,
interview committee, and that's just gonna set the mood and tone. I'll circulate the agenda, but the link is on the agenda.
Yeah.
okay.
Which reminds me, Woody, last night, you know, I was surprised when I got on your meeting before 7:25, but you were already well into a hearing that was scheduled, and I was curious how you did that, because you
Well,
had things
Jen
scheduled
had actually scheduled, it said on the first agenda at 8:30, but she had actually scheduled it and announced it as 7:30. Under
Yeah,
the,
but how can you start a hearing, even a continued one before, well, maybe a continued one you can, but how can you start a hearing before, when it has a set time?
Jen said, and town council nodded up and down,
Okay,
that 7:30 was okay because it had been noticed.
yeah, that's
Now,
why.
I
we're-
don't, I had
we're-
that problem too. I wasn't sure we could do it.
Yeah, we're doing, that's why we're scheduling everything for a 6:30 hearing, and a lot of towns do this, just give it one time and then just take them.
Because you never know.
In
We
order.
had two of our 4 hearings that, were continued,
Right.
like that. So we had a lot of time in our hands.
Yeah, we had an A&R that's been withdrawn tonight that was trying to create 3 lots out of 1 with a common driveway. But the 2 back lots had no frontage on the road, so that's been withdrawn. But
So
withdrawn-
they knew better.
Well, it was withdrawn because they didn't make all the required
Yeah,
submissions. I don't think they are aware of the merits of that particular issue at this point. But, again, the word is out, obviously, and people are gonna start doing things under our current zoning.
Again, land values would have driven some of this anyway, so
Yeah.
I don't
But,
disagree.
but 7 lots or 10 lots or 15 lots in a given location is a function too of whether you have 50-foot frontage or 150-foot frontage.
yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is. All right, guys. So, Tom, you're gonna circulate the planning board agenda so everybody has the link. That'd be awesome. I am going to call us to conclusion at 12:28. And we all know our assignments, so we will be off and working. We'll meet, the 19th is when we've got to have our draft communication work done.
Zoning can be your friend. I've got the whole concept here.
Exactly.
Lots of luck with that one.
All right. Happy New
Thank
Year,
you, guys.
everybody.
All right.
All
right.
Thank you.
It's only Wednesday. Oh my God.
Yeah. And we're having this much fun already. right.
Exactly. I'm just waiting for COVID positive amongst one of my kids. So like,
One of my kids
Has it?
today, he came in positive.
oh, I'm sorry, Peter.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem to be serious, but.
I'm at the point
And
where.
one of my tennis guys canceled out for this weekend because just came down. So it's spreading like wildfire.
Yeah,
Everywhere.
it's a if not when.
Oh, yeah, no, it's just when are you gonna get it?
Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable.
Be safe, everyone. Boost.
You too.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
have a
Bye.
good rest of the week.
Hey, yep.